Hello, I am Radagast. This is Global Mission of Peace TV, and we are Mystic View. I am here today with my co-host, Shelley. Hello, Shelley.
Hello, and hello, everyone.
And we have a special guest. We have Kjell, who's also with Global Mission of Peace. And the topic is heart-based coherence. Welcome, Kjell.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Okay, so Kjell, you have some really great ideas that you shared with us before the show, and we'd just kind of like to turn it over to you and create a conversation after you've said a little bit of what about heart-based coherence.
Yeah, thank you. Like you know, I've been part of Global Mission of Peace for 1.5 years or so now, and really excited about being part of Global Mission of Peace. And I'm from Norway, and I guess a few months ago I introduced a word to Global Mission of Peace that I thought was English, but maybe it wasn't English, when I said that I think we should emphasize being like-hearted instead of being like-minded. Because I said, there were many of you in Global Mission of Peace that I disagree with many of the things you're saying. I disagree with your worldview, but I totally connect with your heart. So that's what I wanted to talk about a little when you invited me to be part of the Mystic View. Because in my understanding, the biggest problem that we humans have on every level, on global level and on level with our partners and everything, is conflict and debilitating conflicts, and that we don't know how to solve conflicts in a good way, ending up with wars and tiny wars inside our homes and big wars between nations. And it all boils down to this thing that we feel I am right and you are wrong. And I just push through my I am right until you see it, that I am right. And I through the years, I have kind of developed a new way of interacting with one another that I think is the way of the future, actually. And the way of Global Mission of Peace, too, and what we have experienced a lot in Global Mission of Peace. And I call that heart-based coherence, meaning that we find our coherence. That coherence is that glue that keeps us humans together in a group or in a family or in a nation, whatever. But that we seek that not so much in being like-minded, but we seek it in being like-hearted. To me, that's it's really beyond a paradigm shift, because a paradigm, that is like a mental grid. It's a filter that helps us to understand reality, get a sense of reality. And very much of our focus is on understanding, getting knowledge. Knowledge is power, and that empowers our actions. But a heart-based coherence goes beyond this. It's not about getting a new grid, a new understanding, a new mental understanding. It's about approaching life and community and fellowship on a different arena. And in that respect, my heroes have been for a long time. My heroes are the ants, like in an ant hill. Is that what you call it? Ant hill?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
They are just incredible. I have studied it to some degree, but we have lots of ant hills around here where I live in Norway, and they can be 10,000 ants in this little space, and they have no cognitive interaction. They have no organization. They have no hierarchy. They have no leaders. They have no planning meetings, no committees, and they they work in perfect synergy and cooperation and communication anyway. If there's a need in one place of the hive or the hill, if somebody caught a tiny animal that they can use for eating, then this communication is sent out to the whole colony of ants, and then they kind of automatically, as many ants that are needed goes to this place to help do that project without any kind of communication or planning like we need to do often as humans. It's incredible. It's like a super entity, like a functioning collective brain or something. And if we think about us humans, we can put 2 humans in a tent for a week, and especially if they don't know each other well, probably they'll have tons of conflicts just from 2 humans trying to cooperate. So I've thought about that a lot. Why is it like that? When the ants can do it, why can't we do it? When the ants can function that way, why can't we function that way? When we are so much superior, we feel at least. And I think there are 2 reasons for it. One reason that I won't talk so much about is that we have this incredible self-indulgence as humans. We focus on our own needs, our own wants, our selfishness, and our egoism. I don't think that the ants have the same thing.
No.
But what with regards to the heart-based coherence, it's one other thing that I think is the main reason why they are able to function like that and we are not able to do it. And that is that we, to a very large degree, we humans, we approach one another and we approach cooperation through filters and paradigms, through a mental understanding of reality. And I took a degree in sociology a few years ago, and there's one approach there I really liked. A couple of guys called Berger and Luckman. They wrote a book in 1966. It's a classic in sociology. It's called The Social Construction of Reality. And there's one of the good emperors, Roman emperors, Marcus Aurelius, like a philosopher emperor in the 2nd century. He has a quote where he says, "Everything we hear is an opinion, not a fact. And everything we see is a perspective, not the truth."
Great.
And that's where the problem lies, I think, that we believe that our construct of reality, that is reality. And this goes with regards to everything in our lives. It goes with regards to our understanding of God or Creator, or who God is, or is there a God, and all those big questions. It's with our understanding of physics, our understanding of spirituality, religion, politics, science, or cultural expressions. But it also goes down totally on the micro level. Like, I'm married, and we can have a conflict of our understanding of reality, where my wife can say, "The lawn needs to be cut today." And I say, "No, the lawn doesn't need to be cut today. Because in my reality, the lawn doesn't need to be cut. In her reality, the lawn needs to be cut." I don't know if you ever experienced anything similar.
Yes, I have. And I just wonder why, if somebody who thinks the lawn needs to be cut doesn't take out the lawnmower and do it, instead of telling the second person that they need to do it.
Yeah, that's you know why? It's because that's the human sickness or whatever, to say that we tend to want to force our construct of reality onto everybody else around us. And that is the basic reason for conflict, really.
Mm-hmm.
And the ultimate person that did this was Adolf Hitler. What he did, he had a construct of reality based on his ideology, based on his understanding of evolution. And so he needed to clean out all these inferior races, Jews and gypsies and all those kind of things, because they were not part of a good evolution of mankind. And he forced his construct, his understanding of reality in his head. He was able to force that construct of reality on millions of people. And that's the really scary part, when people rise to power to such a degree that they are able to force their construct of reality onto lots of people. What we experience in the world today, of course, to a great degree. And especially what's the worst part of this here is when people, especially people in power, turn into being fundamentalists. We tend to think about fundamentalists as religious people that are totally believes in some kind of scripture, the Bible or the Quran or whatever. But I have a much broader definition of what a fundamentalist is. To me, a fundamentalist is a person that in essence says that my reality, my perception and construct of reality is absolute for everybody. And a person like that doesn't have any distance to himself or herself. They believe, like Hitler did, they believe that how they perceive things, that is the way it is. Mm-hmm. And they act on basis of that. And if they're in power, like Cabal, they act on their construct of reality, and they force that construct of reality. They try to force it on the whole world. And in that definition of fundamentalism, you can find fundamentalism everywhere. You find Christian fundamentalism, Muslim fundamentalism, Cabal fundamentalism, New Age fundamentalism, mm-hmm. Scientific fundamentalism, political fundamentalism, alien seekers fundamentalism, nutritional fundamentalism. You can find it everywhere. Where you know that kind of people, right?
Yes.
That they what they're saying is not a suggestion or their point of view. They're presenting it as like, this is the way it is.
Mm-hmm. I like that.
And that also can come down on the micro level in silly things like, this color is best on the curtains. No, this color is best. It's on all levels. In all level of interaction, we have this problem with cognitive and emotional dissonance.
Mm-hmm.
And that, in my opinion, is what the biggest difference between the ants and us is, that we approach reality and one another through our subjective constructs of reality. Are you following me?
Oh, for sure. Very easily.
Yeah. You too, Shelley?
Oh, definitely. I've got a list of questions here to have your opinion on, but carry on, and we'll come back to all of this.
Okay. Yeah. Well, to take it a step further, my background is like 25 years of being a Christian minister, pastor. I haven't been a pastor for 17 years, but I have, I went through an experience 17, 18 years ago. I was a pretty prominent church leader in Norway. I led one of the biggest churches in Norway and a leader of a church movement in Norway. And then I experienced, where I live now in Trondheim in Norway, a group of people. They came from a more alternative New Age background. but they experienced a lot of spiritual things, phenomena, and very strong experiences that they had. And their experiences was kind of explained and perceived in close to a Christian dogmatic understanding of relationship to God and those things. And I thought it was really, really exciting, because at some point this was like a whole movement, like a sort of spiritual revival that included people from alternative New Age circles all over Scandinavia. And I got pretty heavy involved in this. But what it did to me was that this was sort of a Christian expression happening totally outside any Christian cultural setting. It wasn't happening in any church. It was happening totally outside the churches. And that made me go through a long process of trying to figure out, okay, what in my experience was just cultural, was just a cultural thing that I have learned from being in a cultural setting, in my church setting and in my background, and what was truly spiritual reality content. And through this process, I kind of developed this understanding of a heart-based approach also to spirituality, where I realized that we are really experiencing many of the same things, but we have different interpretive systems in explaining what we are experiencing. And then we clash on our interpretations. But if we can see beyond that and see that actually we are all living in one reality, but we approach this reality from different places in our cognitive minds, and so we end up with different interpretations. Well, anyway, I still find many of my explanations and images from the Bible, and I don't know or say that this actually was a historical happening, but I think it's a great image from the Garden of Eden, with Eve and the serpent and the tree of knowledge and the tree of life, because God has told Eve and Adam that don't eat of the tree of knowledge of good and evil, but you may eat of the tree of life. And then the serpent said that Eve, because God had said that you will die if you eat of that tree of knowledge of good and evil. But then the serpent came and said, you will certainly not die. For God knows that when you eat from it, your eyes will be open and you will be like God, knowing good and evil. And when the woman saw that the fruit of the tree was good for food and pleasing to the eye, and also desirable for gaining wisdom, she took of it and ate. And I don't know if that's how it happened, but at least the effect, or what I perceive in humans, is that basically we're all born with that approach to life itself. We approach life through understanding. When we're little children, we get socialized through our parents in the cultural setting that we grow up in. And they give us all these mental grids, emotional grids, that we interpret as reality. And one of the things that I really enjoyed in the sociological study was called ethnomethodology. What that study is doing is that it takes any culture or any group, any subgroup, whatever, and tries to find all the subconscious values and belief systems that are not even conscious, but they're just part of the memes that are being inherited from the people that went before them. That's really interesting, because most people don't understand even where it's coming from. They just kind of picked up this construct of reality and think that is reality.
May I come in here for a second, Kjell?
Yeah.
I mean, it's interesting for as you were saying that, because I'm listening, and when I really listen and I'm not interpreting, I'm able to get other streams that have nothing to do with my normal kind of mind. And I really thought of the polarity of either good or evil, which is a polarity. And it kind of makes me think that there was some correct information in that you would die, because the state that they lived in of kind of gnosis or knowing or knowledge would be disrupted by this having to dissect things. And in fact, when they did come into good or evil, the state that they had previously been in, they did die from. They entered into conflict.
Yeah.
So I mean, to me, you really can see some validity in that. To enter into that state, you would die to the being that you were. Please continue.
Yeah, I totally agree with what you're saying, but it seems like most of us, we are born, or we're being raised, or we pick up this kind of approach to reality. And I'm kind of philosophically minded, and I've studied to some degree the discipline of philosophy called epistemology, which means, how do we know that we know? How do we know that what we say is true? Where do we get it from? What is our, how do we know in our knower that we know? And it seems like most of us, that we approach truth from this dualistic, that is good, that is bad, that is evil, that is good, that is wrong, that is right, that is true, that is false. That we basically approach it from that way. And of course, very, very much in our Western society, this is the basis for knowledge. The basis for science is logical, dualistic approach to reality. And I don't know if you're aware of, but it's the philosopher, the priest in the 13th century, Thomas Aquinas. He has a very important thing that he presented at that time that I think was very influential also in the scientific revolution in the 1600s, because he said that he had a Christian background, but he said that there was one thing in mankind that did not fall in the Garden of Eden. And the thing that didn't fall was our rationality. Our logic did not fall. So the logic was kind of the divine apparatus by which we could approach reality. And of course, this is the basis of science. And through that also, even the understanding of truth has come to mean that truth is something you can express in words. It's a verbal thing. It's a thesis. It's something you can write down. And truth in our Western society, we have a lot from Greek philosophy too, where we tend to think that, okay, let's take a picture of reality. Let's stop it. That's the Greek understanding, where the truest reality, like Plato, is the reality of ideas. And that is a static reality. You freeze reality, and then you analyze it in a mental way, and then get the power of our nature and of everything on the basis of our knowledge, our dualistic knowledge. But what I believe is that truth is not so much understanding, because that's one step removed from reality. We interpret reality. What truth really is connection. It's being connected to reality in a true way. That's really what truth is. And so I have started to be much more concerned about connection than conviction. Mm-hmm. Am I connected to the true reality? is much more important if I have the right convictions about reality. I have some quotes that I would like to read to you. It's a book that I read a few years ago that I really enjoyed the insight. It's written by an American artist, a painter called Glenda Green. The book is called Love Without End. I see, Shelley, that you know about it. It's an incredible, deep book. And I'll just read a couple of quotes here. It's about your heart is your higher intelligence. And it says, I'm quoting, the mind is essentially composed of two parts. The first part is an integrating and transmitting instrument, which is basically a complex DNA computer. It centers in your brain and nervous system, but actually involves every cell of your body. The second part is an electromagnetic field permeating and immediately surrounding your body. This is the primary gathering, storage, and retrieval system for all your sentient experience and thought integrations. All data in the mind is encoded mathematically and is triggered by a plus or minus access or entry impulse. This is why the mind will perform dualistically unless supervised by the heart. When the mind dominates, polarity is the standard reference point. And then another quote here, the mind wanted only to be logical, and so it sought for control over circumstances that were incomprehensible to it. From the viewpoint of the mind, control and understanding are one and the same. The mind assumes that if it understands, it assumes that it understands whatever it controls. This is the central problem, the eye of the storm, a mind-dominated world, and the single most important reason to require that the mind be your servant and not your master.
Beautiful.
And one more quote. The soul or the heart is the totality of your love, your awareness, your experience, your ability, your memory, your emotions, and potential, which compromise your immortality. Your mind is the recorder and administrator. In this capacity, the mind is a useful and important asset to your existence, but it was never built to be the commander. At the center of your soul is the sacred heart. This is the point at which you are one with God. The heart sees infinity within and without. It can behold perfection. It can ascertain the origin of conditions and change them. The heart is your higher intelligence.
I agree. That was so coherent.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was very beautiful.
And this is really, so you see what I'm talking about now is a total different approach to reality, not basically through our minds, but basically through our hearts, not basically through our belief systems and grids, which is to me one step removed from reality, but through heart connection with reality. And when I talk about reality, I talk about all of reality. I talk about that my basic thing in relationship to you guys now, and I'm together with you here, is that I connect with your heart, Shelley, and I connect with your heart, Radagast. That is the most important communication and relationship to me in what we're doing even now.
I agree. I think, like I said, we agree.
Yeah.
We do agree, and I think that heart coherence is what would take us to that higher place of responding as the collective oneness that you were referring to in your analogy about the ants. That they're not all caught up in their separateness, in their ego. They're operating out of a collective understanding of the greater good. And so much of what you spoke of is just so beautifully coherent, exactly like that. The epistemology that you spoke of came from the Greek word pistis, which, that Greek word is for faith. It means faith, but is notably referred to more as a gift or a guarantee from God. It's never something that can be produced by people. It's a gift, that it's faith. But that faith isn't just blindly believing in something. It's when you've opened your heart to receive that high, to step out of our individuality, not lose our individuality, step out of our individuality to join with that higher consciousness.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And I mean, this approach too, this epistemological approach, that's a mouthful. It's not something foreign. I mean, the old Greek philosopher, they talked about this. Aristotle talked about, and he called it direct realism, which means that it's possible to be directly connected to reality and perceive and realize or get gnosis. We talked about Radagast, get knowledge of reality by direct connection. And it has been all along up through the centuries with philosophers, but last 300-400 years it has been ridiculed because of the superiority of the scientific method. And I could talk a lot about that actually, because in my view, the science people, they took over from the priests in the Middle Ages. Before the scientific revolution, it was the priests that had all the revelation of truth and what they said was true. But after the scientific revelation, all the science people, they have the truth that we bow down to. And I believe lots of good things are coming out of science. That's not what I'm saying. But they have taken on to themselves, and in my understanding, their narrow paradigm of understanding reality, they have turned themselves into equally absolute priests as the middle age popes and cardinals and whatever it was. But actually now, philosophers have started to approach this thing of direct realism again. Things are changing, especially because of quantum physics and all the questions they have because of that, because they can't grasp it with a mental approach. It's not really possible to grasp quantum physics through a mental approach. I have a book too that I'm reading now, and it's really interesting. It's called Beyond Physicalism. It's written by some science people, but what they're trying to do is they're trying to, it says towards reconciliation of science and spirituality. It came out last year, and it's kind of cutting edge of the last approach of researching spiritual phenomena from scientific platform. And it's very, very interesting seeing the results they're coming up with there and bridging this gap, in one sense, bridging the gap between the heart and the mind. Mm-hmm. Because that's part of the same thing. And one thing that I do a lot in the book is that they have several chapters on consciousness, which of course is the thing that science people never figure out, because they're looking for consciousness inside the mind. They're looking from a physicalist paradigm, and it doesn't work like that. But they're talking a lot about the transmission theory, that the brain is the transmission of consciousness. Not that the brain is consciousness, mm-hmm. but the brain transmit consciousness. And that makes consciousness the heart, like in these quotes that I had from from the Love Without End book. And when when the mind works in sync with the heart, then the mind is super.
Mm-hmm.
But it's really important to understand that the mind is like a computer, and it spews out whatever input you give it, and basically it's the input that comes from the heart, and that's another thing, that the heart can be corrupted. So it's not just like enough to be in the heart, because there are some the heart needs to be tuned in or directed in the right way too. Maybe I'll say a little more about that but anyway, the essence to me of direct realism, this kind of epistemology, it's a difficult word, epistemological approach to reality, is that that's the most important part for me in anything, in everything, in my relationship to my wife, in my relationship to the law, in my relationship to you guys, Global Mission of Peace, in my understanding, my relationship to God and reality, in everything. That's my most important way of approaching things. And so really, like what we started out with, heart-based coherence, that is finding unity as a group, as Global Mission of Peace,
Mm-hmm.
finding unity not in sharing the same interpretations, but in sharing the same kind of heart. And I don't want to get into that now because it's not important. But Shelley, there are things you have said on Mystic View that I disagree with. Radagast, there are things you have said on Mystic View, and other times too, that I disagree a lot with. But it doesn't matter whatsoever.
Right.
And I don't even feel like I don't have energy almost to get into it. Mm-hmm. Because on the heart level, I'm totally with you guys. I feel totally connected and totally in unity, and that we're on the same frequency, we're on the same wavelength. So if you guys have a little bit different interpretations in your mind and reality, it doesn't matter to me at all.
Yes. Actually, to me, the disagreement is with ideas is where we can kind of find out sometimes where we live. Sometimes people are walking around and they haven't really done any thinking around a subject. So if you put out an idea, they could, and if they just agree, then maybe they didn't do so much thinking. If they disagree, then it will kind of engage some greater coherence mentally.
Yeah.
With what they really believe. I think that one of the problems that we have with society is people haven't thought through where they really stand, especially with media. Basically what it is a lot of other third parties put out opinions, and people, like especially you might have 4 people on a panel and they put out different opinions and people go, oh, that's my opinion. Mm. And I've even said to people sometimes when I'm in conversation with them, I mean, it's kind of a little snarky to say this, but when they've said certain things and I can just kind of hear a talking head, I said, you could stop now. If I wanted your opinion, I'll watch TV. Mm. Because they haven't done a little of their own personal interpretation of reality. And I believe that interpretation is best done through our hearts.
Mm.
Well, I agree with that. And also, I mean, even if we went back to some of the sacred texts, you know, even the Bible in Corinthians, what was it? 2 Corinthians, we're writing about, it is not the letter, right? But the spirit, for the letter kills, but the spirit gives life. And so really that is also what makes this gnosis or the higher knowing available to everyone, because through their heart, they can access the consciousness or the oneness.
Yeah. Can I just share a picture with you guys on the screen here? That kind of, do you see it now?
Yes.
This is a kind of a way, an image to at least explain things to me. If we think about two axes, like the x-axis here, and that is the cognitive, the mental plane. It's the tree of knowledge, really. It's our belief systems and our convictions. And to me, really, that basically is on a horizontal level, that we kind of war against each other on this level, on having the right or wrong thoughts or understanding of things. And lots of conflict stems from that. But then on this y-axis, you have the tree of life, which is not concerned with the interpretation, the knowledge, belief system. It's focused on energy. It's focused on whether you emulate positive energy or destructive energy. It's whether you're connected to reality. And I need to say something there, and that's, of course, is part of my belief system. But I believe that the energy of in the cosmos, you can call it whatever you want to. You can call it prana, you can call it God's spirit, you can call it Higgs field. If you're an atheist, you can call it consciousness, whatever. I believe the energy of that is love, actually. And there are even scientific studies that prove that it is love. So to me, when I talk about connection, I talk about being connected to this energy that is there. And so this axis is energy, value system, heart-based. And what's kind of interesting, if you look at this, like you have an expression in English that I like the expression, I don't like the content of it, but that you say a person can be dead right.
Yeah.
And I place the dead right person right over here. He's 100% right in his words, maybe, in his interpretation of reality, but in his energy, getting out of his mouth and aura or heart or whatever, is not good at all. It can be pharisaical, judgmental, critical, hatred, whatever. So a person can be 100% right, dogmatically and cognitive, but energy-wise, which is the most important axis, to me at least, he can be totally out of it. And vice versa. A person can be really spacey, at least in my understanding, on the right-wrong axis, that can be full of positive energy and just be a beam of light to other people. So, yeah.
Yeah, that dead right. I mean, that I love that. That said, you pointed it out. It is full of deep meaning.
Yeah, it is. And the biggest of them all paradigms, of course, the meta paradigm above all paradigms is our understanding of God, not God. And I definitely have my understanding of God, and you guys have your understanding of God, and some people don't have a God there, or for some people it's just energy, and all is God, and I am God, and you are God, and the tree is God, and some it's just Higgs field, a unified field, it's just fixed physics, and of course we need to talk about these things, but if we kind of just focus on the heart-based thing, then it doesn't matter.
I agree.
It doesn't really matter. Whatever you call it.
Yeah, I just think it's funny. There are some people who call themselves atheists, but they have a really, let's call it moral or ethical base, where because they're letting their heart speak to them.
Yeah.
Because their heart is speaking to them, they're actually operating with God's information. So
that's my interpretation.
Yeah, so that's why even with atheists, if they're coming from their heart, to me, they don't really need an adjustment. because
No.
they don't know it. They don't need to be informed that there's something outside themselves that is inside them, really, because that's
Yeah.
where it is. And that's where it becomes important with heart coherence, with a heart-based, being heart-centered instead of mind-centered. We really don't care if a person is atheist, because that's their belief about themselves or about the universe. But if they're coming from their heart, they're coming from exactly where we would want them to come from. And that's the beauty of the heart, because I really believe that is how we are connected to the universe. That's why even in the esoteric chakra system, it's the center. And even when you were showing your diagram, right in the center that's where the balance occurs. And that's the sweet spot, so to speak.
Yeah, I think I can really resonate with what you're saying there, because many times I have spoken with friends or people that are claimed to be atheists, and they will say something and they're like, oh, I really felt like I needed to do that, or I whatever, how they express it. And then I think in my little mind, hey, that was God's spirit talking to you.
Mm-hmm.
And it was God whispering to your heart, whispering that, telling you to do that.
Mm-hmm.
But they don't interpret it that way, but it doesn't matter. It's the doing that is important. That's what the ambassador is talking about all the time too. It's not, and that's what religious fundamentalists and in religious I can include New Age fundamentalists and all kinds of fundamentalists are doing. They are on a crusade. They're on a crusade with their interpretive system. They're on a crusade with their tree of knowledge mental system. And that's not, in my opinion, that's not why we're here. We are here to be in flow with the universe, whatever we call it, God, the spirit of God, the motion, the love, the energy. We are here to get as close to the ants as possible in our interaction with one another. Because I believe that if we are truly heart connected, we can function in an incredible synergy as human beings, like the ants, but you have to double it many, many times, because we have a submissive, so to speak, mind plus the heart. So the sky is the limit of what we can attain if we get into that heart-based coherence in a perfected way.
For me, when we ate, allegorically, of course, ate of the knowledge of good and evil, and we had the fall. To me, that fall was in many ways required, because the kind of almost innocent existence that we had wasn't conducive to creating the world of God. I mean, I feel like, God, the planet was creation number one. And then there was a world to create on that planet. And we were the agents of the divine to create it, but we needed more mentality. So there was the kind of the creation of that mentality initially was a flaw, right? Now that we have our mentality and we have the logic, we can now we can return to our hearts, which is return to the garden, so to speak, and now build the second creation, to me, which is the world that God wants to make. The planet was made. Now there's a world that wants to be made, and we are the agents of that creation. But we have to be tuned in, just like the ants all work for a hive, for a common good. We have to tune into that same kind of message that they're all getting with no brains at all.
Yeah.
Just like a little chip in there. And so I see a divine plan. I see a divine love in operation, even in the fall, as a necessitation to give us the capacity to create the world that will go with the beautiful planet we were given.
Yeah, that's a great perspective. I agree with you. Yeah, definitely. But the thing is, if you major on the tree of knowledge epistemology, what it really does is that creates separation between people. Because basically, if you really get down to the nitty gritty of it, that then you're I'm probably the only person in the world having exactly the construction of reality inside of me that I have, which means that we're basically 7 billion people with different constructs of reality. And if we major on relating to one another from that, it only creates separation and conflict.
Well, to me, it's like good and evil is a binary system. And so I really think we should be operating from a trinary system, which we are even bringing the concept of the Trinity. And that third piece is the heart. We have good and evil. Okay, so we're looking at this. So which one? I don't know. Ask the heart. And once you get, and to me, in the heart, you will then have the divine answer through, you know, based on where you are. And when you're building out a world, everybody has a piece for themselves. So first they're going to get that mentality, and then then the heart will tell them what part of that mentality to carry out. And so that because God can coordinate all the pieces and has the bigger picture. The thing is, as one of those pieces, you need to know what your piece in the bigger picture is. And so I see a great divine love for the process, but the only way we can get into that process is with our hearts.
Yeah, I got this song that as an inspiration, it's on the Global Mission of Peace Forum, that I gave to the Red Dragon when I went to Hong Kong a year ago. And I just sat down and started playing and recording. I hadn't planned any of the stuff that came out, but one of the sentences that came out there was that, let every man and woman find his place right now. And that's what you're talking about. There's a place for everybody in this flow. So I actually, there's he's dead now, but it's a physicist called Dewey Larson. He's a Norwegian American, and he has written several books, something called the reciprocal system, a theory of everything. And I won't get into that. It's really complicated. But the interesting thing there is that, like, Einstein was basically saying that the constant in the universe in reality is the speed of light. But this Dewey Larson, he said, no, that's not the constant. The constant of the universe is motion. Motion then understood as vibration, sound, frequency, energy, or love, actually, if we put that concept of it. And to me, what it's all about and what the ants are doing is that the ants are in 100% flow with that motion. They are in 100% synchronicity with the flow of the universe. The problem for us humans is that we can let our minds take over control over our heart, and then we can start to resist the flow of the universe. We can even bend it and make something evil out of it. We can twist the energy flow and turn it into something evil. But the goal is to realize what it is and flow with it. And I really, really like what the Danish philosopher Søren Kierkegaard said, and this is part of my belief system. And he said that all of us come to Earth with a sealed envelope. And in this sealed envelope are our divine orders. And so what life is all about is opening up that envelope and finding those divine orders. Finding, why am I here? And how do you find that? You find it through your heart. You find it through the sacred heart and your connection to the Higgs field, if you want to call it that, and the divine consciousness, if you want to call it that, Yahweh, God, if you want to call it that. You find it through connection. But to be connected, there are at least two very important prerequisites. One is that you are willing to surrender. You're willing to surrender your mind. You're willing to surrender to that heart connection. You're willing to be corrected. You're willing to be taught. And the other part of that is that you have to be willing to be honest. Because one of the hardest and most difficult things for us humans is to be honest to ourselves. To be honest about the things going on in ourselves. We tend to rationalize and make systems and excuses and whatever. Yeah.
Well, I would like to make 2 points, and then Shelley has some questions. 2 points is Islam means surrender.
Mm-hmm.
And also with regards to motion, just think about the heart. If the heart is not constantly moving and pumping, you have death.
Mm. Yeah.
And so, I mean, there is the clue, the one organ. He would keep on mentioning our heart, our heart, our heart. And then, you know, Einstein says light, Larson says motion. And then you look at our heart, and unless it's moving, it's not working.
Yeah, that's true.
Okay, Shelley, didn't you have some questions and things to pose to Shell?
I had some questions as we were going along, and then I just wrote them down, and we went a few more sentences, and he answered all of the questions. However, as you know, what I really always come back to as finding within our own immediate experience that which has been presented on a higher level. So I see it as the oneness. I see the divine order where all of those individual paths and however they get there to their goal is absolutely essential and part of the divine order, and that we need everybody to own all of their experiences, and that it's a beautiful and necessary part of the collective oneness that we are and that we are attaining. As I was saying, as above, so below, right? The Most High dwells not in temples made with hands, but if we think of the temple, these two temples, what's in between those? What is that? That's access through the pineal gland, perhaps, as activated by the heart. I think all of these answers are within us, and exactly going into our heart is the surrender. It's the breath that the yogis speak about. It's the pause and the surrender that enables us to be honest, as Kjell was saying. So they really go, I find, hand in hand.
Yeah, I wanted to just mention, earlier I said that just a moment ago, actually, that Islam means surrender. The main reason I bring that in isn't necessarily to promote Islam, but because on the world scene, Islam is kind of like the redheaded stepchild, so to speak, you know? And I just wanted to really legitimize these people and what they're doing and not elevate them, but again, to kind of pull them out of the muck that they seem to, at least in the Western mind. That was it.
It's kind of interesting too. In my Christian walk, I've always tended towards being a mystic, the mystic side of Christianity. And if you look at the mystic parts of the different religions, they are really close to one another.
They never they love each other, and they totally agree to disagree on certain things, but agree on the most important part, which is love.
Yeah, because the mystic approach is the heart approach. That yeah. But I also wanted to kind of make it really concrete. This how do we know we're connected, or how can we measure, in one sense, if we are connected, if we want connection instead of conviction. And one of the easiest ways for me to describe like that we find our unity in a set of values, a set of heart-based values with one another, is thinking about one quality or one value, kindness. If we think about heartfelt kindness, I experienced that once. I still remember it. I I don't struggle much about it now, but some years ago I struggled with some phobias with regards to flying, and I was going to have a long flight, and I sat down in my chair, and then this stewardess, is that what you call it? Flights, yeah, she came over to me, and this wasn't just her job. I mean, it was much more than that. She just showed such kindness to me that it just blew me away. It just kind of lifted away the anxiety that I felt just for and it just was like 10 seconds. And it was an energy of kindness that was brought to me. And I think kindness is something everybody recognizes, whether you're a Muslim or a Christian or a Hindu or an atheist or a New Ager or whatever. You recognize kindness. You sense it somewhere in your heart. You sense kindness. And so if we can decide together, like basically what we're doing in Global Mission of Peace, that the coherence that we have together is not so much that we are exactly the same in our minds, in our understanding of reality, but we have decided a way of having fellowship with one another. We have decided that kindness is a very important part of having fellowship with one another. And I'll mention some of the other values too that you find on the Global Mission of Peace website, where it says that the values of Global Mission of Peace, and they're one of the most important values is humility. The opposite, of course, of humility is pride and arrogance. And to me, pride is I know it all. I'm a final authority. I am God, like that. I become God when I function according to the tree of knowledge of good and evil. Then I become the final authority in my head, and I can tell all of you guys what's right and what's wrong in an arrogant manner. That's pride. The opposite is humility. That is recognizing that I see only in part. I need the other parts. I need connection. I need to grow. I need to change and all of those things. And people recognize that too. They recognize that energy in people. And then I do believe, and I have, it was mostly me that have written the values on the Global Mission of Peace website. And I wrote there that there needs to be one value that is above all other values. And this has been part of my study the last 20 years too. And I have landed on that in the structure of values, the one that defines the other values, it has to be individual sovereignty, extending freedom to one another. Because the antithesis of the opposite of this is control and slavery. And to me, the most holy thing there is in existence is the individual's relationship to God or the universe or whatever he wants to call it. There's nothing more holy than that. And for people to try to come in between one person's heart and his God, that is the biggest sin that you can do. And people do it all the time. We do it in conflicts. We believe that we are God in the situation, that we know what's right and wrong. And of course on a global level, they do it horribly in trying to put all of us in slavery and under control. And people perceive that too. If you're a person that set people free, they perceive that energy as a very, very good energy. Those are good people to be around. And so part of that is then comes humility and then respecting each person to have their own path that they need to walk. And a friend of mine, he expressed it this way. I really like that way of saying it, that I am the only expert in my life. there's no other experts in my life than me and God. And Shelley, there are no other experts in your life. And we tend to be experts in one another's life, and to the degree that we try to control other people. Yes, we need to, in a friendly and lovingly way, share our opinions and share the way we see it and share counsel and insight and stuff. But we share it in humility and respect, knowing that the only expert in making the choices for themselves is the other person. And then finally, the value in this heart-based coherence is building bridges, that we seek unity based on our heart values. And to me, this is also not just the way of building strong community and fellowship in Global Mission of Peace. It's also, to me, a total new approach to spirituality. Because if we can approach spirituality and religions in this way, that we're seeking out, acknowledging or experiences that we have that are similar, or connections with God that are similar, instead of killing one another and knocking one another's head verbally and whatever by our interpretations of what we experience, then that is a total new approach to spirituality, in my opinion.
I agree. Again, you've stimulated me to thought, or things I wish to join in. You mentioned pride. Pride is identified as one of the deadly sins, one of the 7 deadly sins. And I really find that, again, there is so much wisdom that's kind of lost because it's delivered through different systems. So, I mean, for me, the concept of 7 deadly sins sounds, for certain people, to their ears, ooh, it sounds like, so religious. But those 7 conditions that are identified in the 7 deadly sins, if you really meditate upon them, you will see that they are absolutely destructive to your heart spirit. Mm. And so you can drop the deadly sin part, but I would encourage anybody, take that list, look at it, and see the poisons that they are, and recognize them for that. And then also earlier when you said about holy, now, interestingly, this is where we kind of come into spelling, and sometimes I think spellings can give us cues. So let's take holy and holistic. They both start with H. Now, to me, I spell holistic with a W, because holistic really means about taking the whole into consideration. So to me, when you drop the W, it has a whole in it. Holistic without the idea of the whole. And that's why a lot of holistic thought is fundamentalist. It's like New Age fundamental stuff. They call it holistic, but if they had a W in front of it, they might be reminded how to open up. Similarly, when you said you think something is holy, now again, it's spelled with an H, and a lot of people get turned off. If you equate holy with wholesome, with what is wholesome is holy. And again, but the dropping of the W from in front of holy, to me, puts a hole in it. And the word sounds just the same, but I mean, the funny thing is, because of how our programming of the word whole and what that is, the word whole with a W, what that is. And so you kind of understand that these subtleties of spelling are kind of important. And I'm not saying, okay, let's all spell holy with a W, but in your mind, I'm trying to kind of put the thing, when you hear that, put a W in front of it and see how that changes the word. And you really end up with what is good is what is wholesome. What is holy is what is wholesome. And that's my little spiel on that.
Right. And that brings us right back to kindness, because isn't kindness also very holy and wholesome? And it is what endures. And we know that because if you think of anybody who has touched your heart, such as your example of the stewardess, Kjell, with kindness, you remember that and you retain that your entire life. And then you also are inclined to pass that on. Whereas if you just simply try to remember whatever, some famous statistic or something that the world claims is so important. You haven't retained that. That's not that important. It's not what endures. And Kjell, your quote about being like-hearted is one that Rad and I often turn to, as well as Butch Robin's quote of what endures. And so I wanted to thank you very much, because you have touched the hearts of all of us at Global Mission of Peace. And then as it ripples out, we are collectively creating a greater heart coherence through your kindness. So thank you. Thank you for all that you do for GMOP, and as it ripples out for all of us.
From the moment you mentioned the heart, like-hearted, that really shifted it for me, and it made our mission coherent. Heart coherence.
Well, thank you. That's exciting. That's right. Well, it is a shift of focus. It's a shift of epistemology. It's a subtle shift, but it's really is expressed in that thing, like-minded, like-hearted. It's
well, you gave us a meme. I mean, we were coming from the heart, but when you said like-hearted, instead of like-minded, to me, you created a powerful meme, and that's easy to share. And that's the importance of a meme. That's easy to share, and
that's good.
It brings you to oneness. So, do we have a show?
Yeah.
Okay. Shelley, do you have any closing remarks?
Well, that was my closing remark of thankfulness and gratitude to Kjell and to all of our family that participate in creating this global heart coherence.
Well, then I guess I would like to close out the show with, we are Global Mission of Peace. Mystic View is a show on Global Mission of Peace TV right now, also along with Circle 555, our other show currently. We're going to expand, but we have the two. And the three of us belong to Global Mission of Peace. And we just really would like people to be aware of Global Mission of Peace, but and we're really just exemplars of what goes on there. And so I just wanted to kind of promote Global Mission of Peace minimally here at the end of the show, because I think a really beautiful demonstration of who we are, how we're operating, our vision for a better world, I think was shown here. So I'd like to thank you all for joining us at Mystic View. I'd like to thank Kjell for a really beautiful and heartfelt presentation. And that'll conclude. And I would like to God bless everybody, everything, and so it is.